This is Building Resilience Podcast, episode 193, Your Nervous System Matters series with guests Kristy Deys and Kim Rees. Welcome to Building Resilience, a podcast where theory, practical strategies, and inspiring stories show you how to unlock your best life. I'm your host, Leah Davidson. As a certified life coach, speech-language pathologist, and nervous system resilience expert, it is my mission to teach you how to be more resilient to life's adversities. I will show you how to manage your mind, befriend your nervous system, process your emotions, and even eliminate stress. It's time to do more than just survive. It's time to thrive. Let's get started. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Building Resilience Podcast. Now, as I mentioned last week, I want to start sharing with you some real life stories about people and their nervous systems. So I will, in general, sprinkle them in here and there, but I decided to share a couple back to back. And obviously the fall is the time when I have my advanced training in nervous system resilience coming up. The registration is now open for that. And then later on in the year, I will open the doors to my Connections membership one more time. And as I slipped in this episode, I'm actually working on a couple of journals related to the nervous system that I'm so excited to share with you that will come out hopefully before the end of the year too. So not only am I passionate about the nervous system, learning about my own nervous system, trust me, I am on this journey with you all. I love to teach about the nervous system. I also know that we heal in connections. We need each other. We need to support each other. We inspire each other. And that is why I do what I do. This is why I offer my trainings and my membership and in future my journals, because I want to build community that provides a safe space for each of us to grow our capacity for everything, to learn about our nervous system, to create a healthy nervous system, and to support and inspire each other. And these two women that I have invited on the podcast today are definitely inspiring to me. So let me share with you a little bit about them. Kristy Deys is a certified professional coach, and she empowers motivated women to master balance by boosting their inner confidence and resilience, bringing more joy, peace, and satisfaction into their lives. Unlike traditional coaching, Kristy leverages your inherent positive traits to guide you toward the life you truly desire. With over 20 years of experience in HR, including leadership roles, Kristy understands life's messiness and challenges. She offers personalized one-on-one sessions, dynamic group coaching, and flexible online training. Her expertise includes stress management, well-being, leadership development, career transitions, and personal growth, all aimed at helping you navigate life's challenges, unleash your potential, and embrace positive change. The next guest is Kim Rees. She is a certified life coach through the Life Coach School and an alumni of the Advanced Training in Nervous System Resilience. She loves deep conversations and aha moments. She's a mother of two amazing adult sons who make her laugh, and she lives with her husband in beautiful Washington State. She loves being outdoors and hiking and boating and watching the sunset on the water. She's a believer in healing and creating a new experience in life, even when you can't change the circumstances. Enjoy this amazing conversation. So welcome to the podcast, Kristy and Kim. I am so excited to have you here. And I just want to ask you to just briefly introduce yourself. I've already given the formal introduction, but just tell us a little bit about yourself personally and professionally.
Okay, so I am Kim Rees, and I'm a certified life coach. And thanks to Leah Davidson, I am now an expert in nervous system resilience. And I am so thrilled to be here to talk about that. My husband and I raised a couple of amazing boys in the Pacific Northwest, the beautiful Seattle area. And I really tried hard to check all the boxes to make everyone happy was like my goal in life. And then I woke up in midlife to find that nobody was happy, including me. After all of that effort and diligence, and it didn't work. And I was like, what? What is going on? I spent half my life trying to make this happen, and it wasn't working. So sort of long story short, I had a bachelor's degree in psychology already, and I thought maybe I'll go back to school. I'll become a therapist. My kids are leaving the house. And then I found life coaching completely changed my life. And so much so that I decided to become a certified life coach. and loved everything about it. I could completely change the experience of my life without changing any of the circumstances of my life. And I would say that what I discovered through that process is that I was in a personal, painful prison myself. And the walls of my prison were perfectionism, procrastination, privacy, and people pleasing.
All those
And
P's.
yes, all the 4 P's. And there's 4 A's that are the antidote to that, but we won't go into that right now. But you can be taken out of your personal prison, but until you have the capacity to live on the outside of it, you just keep going back in. And life coaching is what was so liberating for me, so amazing. And then I found you and nervous system resilience and totally changed my life again. So amazing. So we can go into any of that.
I love it. I know we have so many nuggets there we can dive into, but I'll let Kristy introduce herself too. And I know we're going to have an awesome conversation. Kristy, go ahead, introduce yourself, please.
So good morning. I'm Kristy Deys, and I can pretty much just ditto what Kim said with a few different personal facts. So I'm currently a certified professional coach. I'm a wife, and I'm a mom to our dog, Bailey. So I've got a furry baby, not a real baby. My career spanned over 20 years in corporate America in a variety of different industries and different roles. As I'd say like the last 9 years of my career, I had the privilege of standing up a center of excellence as part of our HR initiative. And so I got to build the team from the ground up. We got to invent this out of thin air. And it's like a leader's dream to get to do something like that. And so my desire was to create and model what a team really could look like and is like. And it was amazing because other teams sought us out. They wanted to work with us. They wanted to partner with us. And most amazingly, they wanted to be on the team. And so it was a pretty incredible experience. And part of that journey, a couple of years ago, I went to a coaching program because I wanted to be a better mentor. And much like Kim experienced or shared, it changed so much for me. I got personally more out of the program. My team benefited, but I benefited. And then I came across your advanced training, totally changed my life. And like Kim shared, I was in a miserable prison. She articulated that very well. And understanding the foundational elements of my nervous system and how to support myself changed everything. And so that motivated me to switch careers. So I retired early, started my own business. And my deepest heart's desire is to help women overcome their internal barriers. That the nervous system is driving things behind the scenes. And when we really understand that, it unlocks our full potential. And we go from being trapped in the prison that Kim talked about to living on the outside, to live our fullest, most amazing best self and like actually enjoy life. It's pretty incredible. So life-changing experience, life-changing journey. And I want to share it with everybody that I can.
I love that. I love that both of you have really hit on this idea of living within certain walls. And I want to just touch on that a little bit more. I want to expand on that. I mean, I always love to expand on the hope and the future and the moving forward, and we'll get there. But I want to spend some time building that awareness because I think it's common for a lot of people. So there's probably a lot of listeners who are feeling that they're within that prison. Maybe they just didn't have the, eloquent words to articulate it in that way. So can you both share just a little bit more for like that listener who's sitting here thinking like, am I in the prison? And Kim, you did that, mentioned the perfectionism and people pleasing and privacy. And I can't remember what was the fourth one?
Procrastination.
See, I would put it off and just talk a little bit about, because I do see a lot of clients, a lot of women our age, I think we're all very similar age, struggling with that prison. Like you said, you get to a certain point in your life and you're like, okay, was this where I'm supposed to be? And what's next?
Yeah, for sure. So my prison walls were 4 Ps, like I said, and we could probably, find lots of other prisons that I put myself in that are not just those 4 Ps. And I think everybody's might be slightly different.
Mhm.
But for purposes of like a program for me to develop, mine is those 4 Ps. But then the 4 As
Mhm.
to get you out
Mhm.
are awareness
Mhm.
and acceptance
Mhm.
and agency and accountability.
Oh, I love that.
And so that is, because we tend to think of ourselves as victims of our circumstances.
Mhm.
And I was very much there. And actually, like what I was saying before, is that somebody else can help take you out of the prison. Like we all have friends and family who we try to do this for them and they try to do this for us. And we're like, just let me show you. If you could just do this and say these things, then you'll feel better. And you try it a little bit, but because you don't have the capacity to live outside that prison, you keep going back in.
Yeah.
And so in order to grow our capacity to live on the outside of those 4 walls, we kind of have to take a look at all of those different elements. And I believe that the 4 As
Mhm.
of awareness
Yeah.
and acceptance and agency and accountability are a really great way to get ourselves out of that prison.
I do like that you added the whole idea of being a victim. And I know that word can be sort of a hot button for people, even when I'm working with people. I have a joke with some of my clients where I'll say, you may not like me saying this, but are you being a victim to your circumstance when our goal is to be the creator of our thoughts and our behaviors and so forth? So I do think keeping us in the prison is that idea of that victim-like mentality. Things happen to me. My life is this way because of things that happened to me. And if better things had happened to me, like for all those other people who have better lives than me, then things would have been different.
Yeah. And the beautiful thing is that you're not wrong for thinking that. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not broken. It's not a problem. It just is a part of you that's trying to protect you. So it feels so protective to stay in that prison, but it's actually, you're just hurting yourself. And the longer you stay there, the harder it is to get out. So I'm raising my hand that procrastination is one of my prison walls. And privacy, like I was telling this model to someone once, and she was like, well, what's the privacy part of it? And I described, well, when you don't ever tell anybody about how you're feeling, you say, I'm just fine. When people ask you how you are, and you quietly live in despair and hopelessness and burnout.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you're not willing to talk and you're not willing to break that bubble of privacy, and sometimes you have people in your life who are requiring you to be private.
Yes. I just had an experience where I was advised that a situation, you probably can just keep this quiet and just keep this to yourself and not make it, it doesn't have to become problems for other people around you. And it's probably simpler that way. And I just listened. And after I heard it, I was like, could not disagree more. I think that for so many people, this element of privacy. Now, I'm not saying going out and breaking confidentiality. I think there's difference of that. But I think that for many people, this idea of privacy is a huge thing. I want to keep it private. It's nobody else's business. They don't need to know those things. But what they don't understand is shame. Thrives in quote unquote privacy when you keep it in the dark. And so when this person was saying, you could probably keep it, why would you want to? I was like, because I want to go shout it from the rooftops because I want the support and I want other people to recognize that other people are going through things too, and maybe they need the support. So I think privacy is a great one because it's not one we talk about, but it's there. Sorry, Kristy, I want to hear from you and your prison.
I think Kim did such an eloquent job of describing it. She just has a way with words. For me, I think in the corporate landscape, the buzzword that sort of identifies what I was going through is imposter syndrome. But for me, it's actually so much more that just scratches the surface. But it's that notion that I look one way on the outside, but I feel very differently on the inside. And Kim uses the term privacy. I use the term hiding. So they're the same thing.
Yeah,
I've got to hide who I am so that I'm acceptable to the world. And because of my childhood experiences, I perfected a mask of being what I thought other people wanted me to be in every situation. So at work, I'm this way. And, at home, I'm this way. And with friends, I'm this way. And it's not that I was being fake. That persona was very much about how I engage in the world. And the really odd thing about it is part of it was my natural giftings and talents. But inside, because I had a victim mindset, because of what I was raised in, it was outward focused. I needed outward validation that I was okay. And if I stopped being what other people wanted me to be, it threatened my sense of worthiness because I was so wrapped up in perfection, producing, acceptance, validation, not acceptance like Kim's talking, self-acceptance. It's like acceptance and validation of other people. And it, like Brene Brown talks about the armor, it's really heavy to wear those masks. And then when you're hiding and you're not being real, people have no idea the inner swirl. And it's like the way I think about it is my prison door was open, but I stayed chained in the cell because I was too afraid to live authentically and risk not being accepted. So then I just kept living in these four walls. And it was miserable. I didn't want it. I read books. I went to therapy. I pursued programs. I tried to get out of the prison. But what I learned in your course was my nervous system dysregulation is what was keeping me trapped there. It was working as designed, but it wasn't serving me. And so learning all of that is what really set me free to release myself from the prison and live outside those prison walls.
Oh, I love that. You guys are so great with analogies too, because I think the visual of seeing trapped inside and now we want to take the step going outside. And I love that you mentioned the door was open. Like the door was open. It was ready for me to walk through. But as Kim said, I just didn't have the capacity. And where was I walking through to? I think that's something we talk a lot about in the training. I give that example of when you start learning about your nervous system, you're all excited. You're like, yes, I understand it now. I want to move into a more resilient place, a safe place. And you get all excited and you pack up all your boxes. And then it's like the mover's like, where are we going? Oh, I don't know, because I haven't developed my capacity. I haven't developed my home. I haven't developed any of that. So let's talk now about breaking through and the role of the nervous system. How did it work for you? How were you able to walk through that door and build that capacity to step outside in the world?
Well, let's see. Is this a 10-hour podcast?
No, how much time do we have, Leah?
I could sing your praises for a long time, Leah, because that chorus was so amazing and it's so dense.
Yeah.
It's so packed. And so I'll just tell you, I showed up last Thanksgiving to my friend Sue's house, and she's also a certified life coach. And we're like, we don't see each other and talk to each other very often. We're, sharing notes as we're making dinner. And I'm telling her that I'm in this course and she's asking me. And so I keep running down this long list of aha moments. And then there's this, and there's this, and there's this. So I'm like, let's see, where do we start? But I would say, first of all, we all have a smartphone. Well, not all of us, but many of us in this day and age in our country have a smartphone. And some of us really know how to use it. And some of us, like me, have a really expensive way to text and call and use a calculator and search the internet a few times. And, some people use their phone to make millions of dollars.
Right.
Some people use their phone to influence countries and political systems and religion and all kinds of things. And some people use it to surf, the socials and whatever. And I just think that for me, it was an awakening to take your course about nervous system because I knew I had one. I was like, I owned a smartphone.
Yeah.
And I had very little idea of what to do with it. Like my ideas about nervous system was people talked about, you have a nervous breakdown, or I feel nervous, or you're on my nerves, or I have nerve pain. And that was probably about the extent of the ideas that I had about it, my nervous system. I would say I would know more about my circulatory system than I did about my nervous system. I just knew I had one. I had no idea what it was doing all the time. I had no idea how to control it or anything. And I'll say that like one of the most profound things that is so simple, and I keep finding more and more layers of how profound it is, that you taught us that stress can't exist in a relaxed body. And that just seems like the most simple thing in the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I can keep finding more and more layers of how true that is and how to use that in a profound way in my life. And it's just amazing.
And I learned that, I always like giving credit where credit's due. I definitely learned that from my mentor, Dr. Eric Gentry. And that was such an aha moment for me too, that stress can't exist in a relaxed body. Because when I started dissecting that, and like you said, it's very simple, but when I started dissecting that, I was like, so if I can learn to relax my body, that can help me deal with stress? Like, wait, no, that seems too simple. And so there's other nuances there as well, which we talked about, but it was really profound for me. So I just need to explore the thousands of different ways I can relax my body and see what happens.
Because it's not only the key to mental health, but it's also the key to physical health.
Absolutely.
Like if we boil it all down, that is so, so profound.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Another super profound one for me, and then I'll let Kristy go because I could go on and on. But I remember when you told us that the survival brain, that we like to call the monkey brain, that lower part of our brain, is wired directly to our nervous system. But the prefrontal cortex, our CEO, the higher part, has no direct link to the nervous system. It's not directly wired in. And I remember it hitting me. I was like, oh, the CEO is the last to know, which is really kind of true in the corporate world too. Like for the ground level workings of a company, the CEO is the last to know.
Yeah.
That made so much sense for so many things for me, which I could pontificate on for a long time. So I won't. But I just remember there's just so many little profound things that make a world of difference in application. Knowing that, I never thought about that my nervous system is not directly wired to the CEO.
Because your survival brain, when that is dominant, our CEO is offline. And so we need to quiet down that survival brain to bring that CEO on. So it's not like there's a choice. Do I use my survival brain or do I use my prefrontal cortex? Now there is a choice once we learn how to regulate, and then we can decide to bring the CEO on board. But that automaticity, that automatic thing, we are automatically wired for that survival. Yeah. And then we have to invite that CEO.
Yes. And that was the other piece of it too, that was so fascinating, that they they can't both be dominant at the same time. Like you don't have a car with two steering wheels. So they have to keep switching positions.
Yeah.
And if you can deliberately get them to switch positions into having the CEO back in charge, it makes a difference in everything we do.
That's right. That's right. Thank you so much for sharing that, Kristy.
Yeah. Well, like Kim, where do I start and how much time do we have? I'll say when in the beginning, like once I finished my certification, like I'm telling you, within just a couple weeks, I heard you on a podcast. You were a guest speaker. And the way you described, you did a high level overview of like, team resilient, team hyper, team hypo. I think you even gave an analogy or a metaphor of a thermostat. And it just clicked inside. It's like, I have to know more about this because as I had shared earlier, I had pursued, I'm like an avid learner. So I had pursued all these things because I'm trying to fix this swirl inside. And I had this fundamental belief that I was defective. Somehow, like, I'm talented, but I don't see it. People tell me I am. They're just being nice. Like, I had this crazy inner war, and I just felt really defective because every day I woke up, I was just plagued with misery. And so I was very intrigued. So then I get into your course and I'm so excited, and I'm like, and I don't know if it was the second class, the third class, but at some point you had said, I saw it on a slide and I heard your words, this is your biology. And you even like slowed down, biology. And you're like, it's physiological, not psychological. And then you said the most profound words, you are not broken. See, it still brings tears to my eyes. I mean, a floodgate. I was just in tears with the relief that I'm not broken. And it's not that my nervous system was flawed. It was operating as designed. And so all the imprints, which I know what my childhood was, I know what I've been through, so does my nervous system.
That's right.
And it just came together in this like flood of, I'm not defective. I'm not broken. And it started me on a whole new journey of acceptance and in self-acceptance, of awareness, all the words Kim used, very much a part of what I learned in the program. And I will say that moment caused me to look at myself and treat myself with more compassion. Now, I'm a work in progress. I didn't get where I was overnight.
We all are.
And I'm still on a journey to do this, but it was so profound. And I will tell you, every single class I had an epiphany, but that was sort of my groundbreaking, the seismic earthquake that shook everything up in a good way, that said, change really is possible for you, Kristy. I think the other thing that was really unique was the community that we were able to create, the vulnerability, the openness, not having to hide, but to risk coming out and saying, this is what I'm really feeling. This is what I'm struggling with, and have others go, me too, or, oh, thank you. Or, the sharing, just the vulnerability and the depth of connection that was made. There was something about that I'm not alone feeling. And I've been through recovery groups, so I know the power of shared community, but to be able to do that in the class virtually was pretty profound and incredible. The application, though, is what really solidified the changes. So these were important ahas.
Right.
But the aha and knowledge in and of itself didn't create the lasting change.
Right.
The change was when I committed to the practices. And you gave us a slew of different practices to try, to explore, to experiment. I grabbed the ones that worked. I kind of cobbled a few together, invented my own. But it's that daily regulating and creating the inner safety that changed how I felt about myself, how I showed up in the world. And I'll just share this one. It's a funny story for me, but one of my inner prison battles was I always felt intimidated by authority figures. Even didn't matter what title I had, didn't even matter that I made it up into leadership levels. I felt intimidated by my boss, didn't matter who the boss was. I felt intimidated by people with titles above me. And my boss had gone on an extended vacation. He had taken like a 3-week vacation with his family, and he came back. And it was about a month afterwards. I was telling my husband one night, I'm like, I don't know what was in the water over there, but I want to bottle it up and make sure this man drinks gallons of it every day, because it's amazing. Like, it was an incredible vacation. I feel like he respects me now. I feel valued. He seeks out my opinion. Like, I can't believe the transformation. And my husband smiled and he goes, Kristy, it's not him, it's you. And I'm like, what? And he goes, you have changed so much in the last couple months. Your viewpoint of the world is different. And so you're showing up differently. It was so like, it's surreal because I would have sworn he didn't like me, didn't value me, didn't respect me. That was my lens. And I filtered all of our exchanges through that lens. And whether he really did or didn't isn't material. He's just who he is. And I was having this total and of course, remember, I'm putting on a certain mask and whatever, and then it's different inside. And so when I started really befriending my nervous system and embracing who I am and creating safety, and that healing started happening, my relationships changed. They didn't change. I changed. And because I changed, my experience with them changed. And that was so profound because it's like, that was my truth. That was a fact. He didn't like me. And that was the furthest thing from the truth. It's just, that was my clouded lens because of my victim mentality. And so I loved the Windex that I got in your class, cleaned up those things, got my safety going. And that was pretty incredible that by changing my inner experience, I profoundly impacted other people and our relationship without ever telling them what I was doing, because nobody knew I was taking your course except my husband. So that was pretty cool, really cool.
And I love that too, because it could be, and we all love mindset, and I'm never going to trash mindset, but some would argue, well, you could have just changed your mindset and changed the way you thought about it.
I tried and it didn't change.
Exactly. Yeah. Because the nervous system provides the lens through which you see everything. And that's the way I share with people, is that like your thoughts, your feelings, your actions are all filtered through the lens of the nervous system. So if your nervous system is pink, you're going to be tinted pink. If it's blue, it's going to be tinted blue. So you could try to change your thoughts, feelings, and actions, but it's always going to carry the tint of your nervous system. So that's why we want to go through that nervous system. So that's a very powerful example.
Well, and depending on what team you're in, those are the thoughts, feelings, you can't access the other ones. And so that's why that tint, that lens really rules the day. And you're not even aware that it's doing that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's pretty incredible.
Yeah. So tell me, what are some of your favorite tools that you use to help yourself, just play around with getting to regulation? I don't want to say get to regulation, because I do think there's an element of trial and error. Like Kim said, I threw at you tons of different tools. Some of them work for me. Some of them don't work for me. Some of them work for you. What are some of your go-tos? The other reason I want to ask is, I know that Kim, it was such a gift to have both of you in the program. But one of the things Kim early on said is she likes hearing from other people about what they're doing and how they're doing it in their life. And sometimes we all take the approach of, I don't want to tell other people to do. My feeling has always been, I want to hear what people are doing, because it gives me ideas of what I can try and how I can do that. So Kim was always the person in our group who would be saying, what is everybody else doing? Why is everybody else doing it? Because I think it fed your creativity. It fueled where you want to go. So I want you guys, for the listeners, to share what you're doing. What are some things that work for you, so that other people can go and say, oh, that's a good idea. Maybe I'll try that, or I'll do a variation of that.
Yeah, I have so many things flooding my mind. So I love that Kristy brought up the community piece, and I loved how you created this community and made it safe for us. And I did become the poster child for, what does everybody think about this? And tell me more. Like, if somebody would be like a mind blown emoji, I'm like, tell us why your mind was blown, because that does help me so much. And I'll say that some of the modalities that you introduced us to, I had already heard of and been introduced to before, like tapping, for instance, EFT. And I had heard people rave about it, and I looked into it a little bit, and I had never felt anything. And then we tried it again with you. And I have this perfectionistic thing that I can't seem to turn off completely in my brain yet. So I think just being on camera with other people, or even if I turned my camera off, I still had this like, am I doing it right? I'm in my head instead of experiencing it. For me, it's taken me a lot of practice with all of the tools in order to get past that part of me that is wondering, am I doing it right? And just start to experience it. And I won't go into it right now because it would take too long, but I have had profound experiences now with tapping. But part of it is because you had told us about some of the ways you've used it. And like you just mentioned, I do it in bed at night. And when I started doing that with all the quiet and the darkness and everything, I could go inside and I could see and feel things differently than during the day. And especially if I'm wondering if I'm doing it right. And so I would say, for one thing, that just repeated exposure and lots of practice and willingness to try is the key. I would say my favorite is breathing, that you created a pathway in for me through science, which I know is also your way in, that you've expressed that if you're going to talk to me, you're going to have to go through my head, not through my body.
My love language is science through my head. Don't talk to me first about my body. Talk to me about the science. And then my body's like, oh, really?
Yeah. I was able to go like backdoor into places in my body because I now understood scientifically what was going on, like with your breathing, that your nervous system is wrapped around your heart and your lungs, and that you can help control your heart rate by breathing in specific ways. And that signals to your nervous system, we're calming down, there's not a threat, we're safe. And so just sort of those sorts of things, and knowing that in order to calm myself, I needed to focus on a long, slow exhale. And why? And so that has been a really profound thing for me. And that's probably the one that I use most often. I love ragdoll. I love to do the ragdoll. That is also so useful. And then I found myself in situations where I couldn't use all the tools that I would normally use. Like if I was presenting and I couldn't do safety cue. I couldn't do things with my hands because I'm clicking through slides. I can't do visual field things. And so then I would come back to you and you'd say, well, did you try the pelvic release? And I'm like, no, I totally skipped that one. It was not interesting to me at all. And then I had to give a speech. And that's the only thing that I could do was the pelvic release exercise. And it was amazing. It gave me just tiny little glimmers of rest. And as soon as I would release those muscles, they would clench back up again. And I would release them and they would clench back up again. But because I just did it over and over again, it just gave my body just tiny moments of relaxation and rest. And it helped my system from continuing to ramp up higher and higher. And so just layering and revisiting and knowing that I can't exhaust the depths of the benefit that I can get from all of those tools. Even as simple as they are, if I come back to it again as a beginner and try to find something new and open my heart and kind of go backdoor into my body through my brain and why this is all scientifically proven and why it works, then that has been where I have found profound success.
So many different tools too. I love that breath was one of them because I just signed up for this fall, a new course that I'm doing. So of course, whenever I learn, I take it to you. So I'm excited to even go further with what I have learned about the breath and to bring it to, people in the training and people who are in connections, the membership afterwards. And because I love looking at what are the different gateways to my nervous system, and breath is a primary one for me as well. So thank you for sharing that. Kristy, are you a breath person too, or?
I'm a all over the place person. So yes, breath definitely. And I incorporate it in with my practices. So sometimes it's just sit there to calm myself, especially if I'm super activated. But I will share, I had been exposed to EFT prior to your course, and the tapping solution is a great resource for the Ortners have created that business and it's pretty amazing. So I use a lot of their tapping meditations. But it was great to, reminder in the course, but that's probably one of my most solid go-tos. I will also say, like Kim said, you can't always just, pull it out and stop in the middle of a conversation. I'm dysregulated. I need to tap. But one thing I start my clients on and is my go-to is the butterfly tapping.
Mhm.
There's just something rhythmic and soothing about that. And then I incorporate breathing and affirmations and releasing tension. So I've kind of done a little morphing with it to expand it out. But that's such a easy to do and impactful, especially when somebody's starting out. And I use it, if I write it, if I get activated and I'm about to start something else, I can just pull that out, use it, helps to calm me down. A really effective one was creating my safety cue. And in the beginning, it was very hard for me because it's the repetition. It's getting that experience into my kinesthetic cue. And it's not visualizing the imaginary safe place I'm creating. It's the feeling of safety. So that took some time to really incorporate and get not activated, but working the way I needed it to. And that the premise behind that is you create safety for yourself in a meditative space, and then you tie it to a kinesthetic touch point, and then eventually you just need to touch that point, and your body associates it with your memory of that safe place, and so you have safety. So for me, that was a big deal, especially at work, because I would have my kinesthetic cue where you couldn't see it on screen, but I could activate it. I could use it when I needed it. And so that was super, super helpful. I forget the actual formal name of the practice, but I call it the 2 questions and relax. So it's, am I safe? Do I feel safe? And usually my logical brain knows I'm safe, but my emotional self does not. It's like my answer is always when I say, do you feel safe? She's screaming at me. So it's like, okay, well, let's just relax, because as we shared, you can't have stress in a relaxed body. And so that really helps. And I find that especially when I've been triggered or I have a flashback from trauma, that will help me almost instantly come into the present, because I'm activating my brain and my emotions are not carrying me away. I'm the opposite of you two. I'm very emotionally wired, driven, empathetic. I just take on a lot of the energy in my environment. It's not that I don't use my brain, but my pathway is into the heart first. And then the head's like, oh yeah, let's logic through this after. Emotions have driven us over the cliff because, we're out of control. So, but I'm just scratching the surface on the amazing tools that we learn. But those kind of have been my go-tos when I feel super dysregulated and I want to come back into regulation to support myself.
What is so amazing to me, I think, is there are literally hundreds of tools. And there's ones, like you said, I love how you sort of morph things, combine this. It's like making your own recipe, which is what I've talked about. Here's the ingredients. Everybody has access to the ingredients. How do you make your own recipe? And just knowing that as you progress, the tools will change. And you can have the confidence to change with them because, like you said, you're aiming for the feeling of safety inside. So maybe this is what's helping me now, or there's so many different tools. And I love that you each have your favorite ones and you come up with different ones. And I find that with my clients too. Sometimes I'm even hesitant. I'll be like, do I really want to teach this one? And then somebody will be like, oh, that's the most powerful one. So it just shows our systems are so different. I know I could talk all day with you guys, but the last sort of question I want to touch on is for people who are just, do they want to explore their nervous system? How do they start exploring their nervous system? Should they explore their nervous system? What would you recommend? What would you say?
Well, take Leah's course.
Aside from that is a given, obviously, but
I think that awareness is always the first step. And I think that I like to say that awareness is where the magic happens. Just don't expect it to feel magical.
Oh, Kim, that's so good. That needs to be a billboard.
Yes, it does. That does.
Because sometimes we are afraid of going into discomfort, but that is, if we can welcome the discomfort of new awareness, that is the thing. I'll tell you another thing that's been rolling around in my mind this morning is you can do it as wrong as you want for as long as you want. And I was just thinking about that this morning, that one of the blessings to me about life coaching was that I figured out how to be wrong about something and be okay with it, because I was such a perfectionist, people pleasing, like it's not okay to be wrong. And so being willing to befriend your nervous system and feel the feelings that come along with, oh, I was pushing myself away. I was making myself wrong. I was punishing myself. And can I be compassionate with myself about that? And can I just then befriend my nervous system? I love that's the language that you use about it, is to befriend our nervous system. And if you think about when you're making friends with someone, you're open and willing and excited and interested. But when we think about our bodies, we mostly are like, ooh, I'm disgusted and wish it was different and angry and frustrated and need it to be something that it's not. And that's never going to get us friendship. That's never going to get us access to our nervous system. And so that awareness piece of just being willing to begin and being willing to be a little bit open and interested and kind and compassionate with yourself, because as you teach us, the nervous system does not like to be pressured into anything.
No.
We have to kind of backdoor baby step. Let me love you. Let me welcome you. I'm so sorry that you're having a hard time. Let me just listen to you and be with you. And I think that is kind of the first step, that we really have to start where we are and love and accept ourselves with so much compassion. And for most of us, that's a really foreign thing to do.
Yeah. Oh, I totally agree. I'm 100% on board with awareness. I know that I have a sneak peek. I'm working on a project to help. I'm working with a journal that's going to be helping people build up awareness, that will be available in the late fall. Because to me, awareness, like you said, it shifts everything. It doesn't mean that you don't have to take the steps, because I think awareness is the first step, but it is such a crucial step, because you cannot change something that you're not aware of.
Right.
And you can't have compassion for yourself for something that you're not aware of. So I think awareness, I do love that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I think you can maybe take the pressure off too. Some of us are afraid of becoming aware, because we think that it means we'll have to take action that we're afraid of taking. We think it means we're going to have to leave relationships and upend our whole life. And you can completely change your experience with life without changing any of your circumstances.
Totally.
And it's fine to change your circumstances. And sometimes it makes it less stressful to change your circumstances. It's not a problem. But also, you are... everywhere you go, there you are, you'll find yourself again. And so this work is still worth doing, but being able to give yourself permission just to have awareness and not have to act, let's just become aware, maybe is the baby step that some people need as well. Because
I do think with awareness, sometimes you don't need to do anything more. Like just being aware is enough of this, I guess it's an internal shift of the awareness. And now that I'm aware, I don't need any more. I don't need to do anything. And that's the power of it. Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up, because I think it's very powerful.
I grapple with this every day, because now I've incorporated nervous system into my coaching, and it's really the foundation. So as we had talked about before, like so many times we're trying to do mindset work, but if we don't understand what's going on behind the scenes, that's only going to take us so far. So it's really this body-mind connection and aligning our nervous system, expanding that resilient zone is so important and so foundational. So that's why it's important to understand the nervous system, because it's driving you, whether you realize it or not, it's driving you. And learning about your nervous system makes explicit what is implicitly happening inside of you. And those are your words, Leah. I'm taking that from a training I took with you. So, but it's really true. It's happening whether you know it or not. And so as Kim's been sharing, bringing awareness to it, and then application, that's what catapults you forward and absolutely changes everything for you. And I love how Kim said, you don't have to change your circumstances, though you can.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't change out my boss, but my relationship with my boss revolutionized because of the work that I did. The other thing I would say is if you have any reservations, doubts, questions, you're not totally sure if this is for you, I really encourage you to contact Leah, because she will assess, like, is this the right timing for you? Is this a right fit? She'll even recommend other things for you if it's not a right fit. She has the most astounding integrity of anybody I know. And so if you're on the fence, if you're curious, you really want to, but you're not sure, just reach out to her and have a conversation. Come out from hiding and have a conversation. You don't have to tell anybody except Leah. But I think you will be so thrilled you took the step and said yes for yourself and invested in yourself. It's life-changing.
Oh, that is so kind. Thank you so much. I have said to you both before, but I'll say it on this public forum. It is such a privilege to work with so many amazing humans. It has been the greatest blessing for me to have created this training because of the people that I have met through it. Like, I really, there's students, there's clients, there's colleagues, but for me, this is like, I was doing an Instagram post and I was saying, it is like my nervous system resilience family. Like, there's just such support. And I wanted to create this series of Your Nervous System Matters to just show people, everyday people's experience with the nervous system. And if they can get a glimpse of the kind of community that is available, and I love to think of actually my whole podcast as being a community, because the training is not right for everybody. My Connections membership is not right for everybody. I'm hoping my journals will be right for everybody. But the podcast, I'm hoping that people do have a sense of connection and belonging, that you're not broken, but your nervous system is probably the answer for you.
You kind of asked what would the compelling reason be for people to learn about their nervous system. And you taught us about neuroception. And I think that the fact that your nervous system is spying on you all the time and has it knows that you have a relationship with everything. You have a relationship with people in your life, but you also have a relationship with getting up in the morning, a relationship with food, a relationship with traffic. And so your nervous system is always responding to those relationships below your level of attention. And when we have a hard time changing a habit, which I would think that all of your listeners can probably think of something going on in their lives that they're like, I have tried everything I know how to try. Mm-hmm. Have you tried your nervous system? Because your nervous system is the key, actually, to get a lot of traction with making a lot of change in your life, including like changes in your personality. What Kristy was saying, her husband's like, no, they didn't change, just you did. And it's a beautiful thing. And that is what we have the most control over. And so it's just this beautiful new window into a part of you that you had no idea really even existed. And it's so powerful to affect your health, your physical health, your mental health. I mean, we didn't even talk about all the chronic pain and all those things that are my favorite things. So I just want to say that I think that it is kind of the missing piece to what so many of us are searching for being able to make changes in our relationships, in our body composition, in everything. It's something that's so influential. And so I'm so grateful to have found it and the way I found it, which I don't know if we ever got to this either, is just that I was looking to be a trauma-informed coach because I was hearing that this was such a necessary element. And I was like, okay, how am I going to make that next level of training happen? And I was looking at a few different sources for that, but they were all very trauma-focused. And it also felt a little bit traumatic in a way. And so when you started talking about nervous system resilience and that trauma-informed was part of that, but it was really not the main focus of it. And I love your emphasis on resilience. And that is kind of how I felt about coaching too. It was just so forward focused, so healing focused. And I think that healing and creation are probably my two main words to describe what I have found through coaching and nervous system resilience. And that is powerful.
Very powerful.
I love that so much. And I've shared with you before when I was building this podcast, creating my coaching practice, creating the training, creating connection. The thing that was always in my mind is light, hope, faith, resilience. There is adversity and challenge and trauma, and I don't want to deny any of that. And many people have experienced, so many different layers, so many different levels, and it's very real and it's very painful. But I think the answer for all of it is light, hope, faith, community, and creation and resilience. And so I love hearing that from you, Kim, because that's exactly what my greatest desire is and was and will continue to be, to have that be the focus. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah,
now
I'm
share
forever
where
grateful.
people can find you.
Okay, so I am better at playing in the real world than in the digital world. But you can find me a little bit on Instagram at Kim Rees Coaching, and also on LinkedIn, Kim Rees Coaching. You can message me at either one of those places. My last name is spelled Rees. There's no E on the end. And then I'll just give you my personal email address, because I would love to hear from anybody who has any questions or wants to know anything more about working with me. You could get on my email list if you want. I send a weekly email out, and that is just kimreescoaching@gmail.com. And just kind of as a favor to any of your listeners, I don't have a digital freebie, but I would be happy to do a presentation for anyone who is like a leader of a group in your listening audience. If you're a leader of a corporate group or a women's group or a youth group or a family reunion or something that you want me to do a digital presentation for, I have a presentation that's all about Leah's work, actually. And
I've seen it.
and I would be happy to do that. If you want to contact me within the month of August to get something scheduled, I'd be happy to do that free presentation for
I love
your
it.
group, because I think that everybody really does need to know about this work, and the more people that can be exposed to it and start to understand that they have a nervous system and that there's a lot more that they can do with it than what they currently are doing.
Awesome.
I would be thrilled to do that.
Thank you. Thank you, Kim. Kristy, where can people find you?
Kim, that is so generous. My heart's just like beaming at the generous offer you just gave people. So I hope they tap you on the shoulder and tap into what you have to share, because you're an amazing presenter. You can find me at www.deyscoaching.com. My last name is spelled Deys. I'm also on LinkedIn. I have an assessment you can take if you just kind of want to have an understanding of, in terms of what we shared today, team hyper, team hypo, resilient. So you can check that out if you're interested in that. I personally do one-on-one coaching at this time. I will be opening up a group class in, we'll say, the October timeframe. I'm getting it ready. It's not as intensive as what you're going to learn in Leah's course, but it pulls from those things for those of us that just need some practical tools. I've incorporated it into the training materials that I do for my coaching. So that will be offered in the September time for a course in October.
Awesome.
So
awesome.
would love to hear from you. And
we will put all the links in the show notes so people
Perfect.
will be able to access it, that in case you didn't have a pen and be marking it down. Thank you both for being here and sharing. Thank you for being you. Thank you for being a part of the nervous system resilience world. That's my world. And I appreciate you both so much.
Such a pleasure and a privilege. Thank you, Leah.
All right. Take care, everybody. See you next time.
bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Building Resilience podcast. If you're interested in learning a little bit more about managing stress, building resilience, and leading a more purposeful life, then make sure we're connected on Instagram and Facebook at Leah Davidson Life Coaching. You can also subscribe to my weekly newsletter at www.leahdavidsonlifecoaching.com/newsletter. Looking forward to connecting.